It's lovely to be here. I'm a York boy who's been cast out to utter darkness, which is Devon. And so it's lovely to come back. I was saying to somebody earlier, I used to cycle past here every day to go to sixth form college, and I've never been here. And so it's lovely to finally be inside and to see around a bit. My talk is about the 5 essential truths of fundraising. Quick little bit about me. So I'm Chief Executive of a charity based in Devon. I've worked in fundraising roles or management roles for about 20 years, and I've worked for some tiny, tiny organisations and some huge multinationals. I've done some specialist roles in fundraising, and I've done those soul fundraising roles, or as they're more accurately often described, soul-destroying fundraising roles, where you are responsible for everything. And I'm guessing there's a few of you here. I might as well show off. If you're on a stage, I think it's obligatory. Did a fundraising campaign called Thanks a Million, which was tremendously successful. It was one of those, it's a nice story about fundraising, because I was raising money for a charity, a hospice in Devon, which had needed £1 million, and had actually hired the builders, and they'd already started work, and we didn't have £1 million. And as a fundraiser, if you've been in the game for a while, you'll know that happens quite a lot. Can you go and raise money for something we've already spending? And anyway, I had this great idea in the bath. I thought, I was lying in the bath, all best fundraising ideas come in the bath. Okay, so if you are seeking inspiration in your fundraising, have more baths. I thought, hey, let's try and raise £1 million in 1 million seconds. That sounds great. And in those days, it was all about Challenge Annika was on the telly, and it just sounded great. I really liked the idea. I liked the idea of seconds counting down and hopefully money counting up. And I was lying in the bath thinking, I wonder how long 1 million seconds is. And I'm not very good at maths. And in my head, I thought it was probably about 2 to 3 months. I got out of the bath, got my calculator out, and found out it's 11.5 days. And we were so desperate. We were in such a mess, and I was young and I was naive, and we went for it. We raised £863,000 in 11.5 days, and we crossed the £1 million in 6 weeks. As I've stressed to many people, largely that was successful due to the nature of what a hospice is and can't be replicated by every cause, unfortunately. But it was tremendous fun and tremendous excitement, and it taught me a lot. Anyway, I was the Institute of Fundraising regional chair in the Southwest for a while, did a few fundraising talks and things, and ended up writing them down into the book called The Porcupine Principle. And you'd be amazed to know that I have actually brought some copies of the book today. But as I always stress, the Directory of Social Change, they didn't pay me to write it, and they don't pay me to sell it. So you can buy it in the comfort that I have not gained at all from its publication. It had a fantastic review on Amazon, I think it is, where somebody said, if you want to buy a book on how to do fundraising, don't buy this book. But if you want to buy a book that will inspire you to try, then this is just about perfect. So that's the aim of it, and that's the aim of this session. Hopefully, the idea today is that we will feel motivated because we are in difficult fundraising times. It's a staringly obvious comment to go and make. We know that times are hard. It's one of those cruel realities of life is that when our economy goes downhill, money is less for fundraisers and the demands for the charities are higher. So we are caught, are we not, in a really difficult and tough environment. And I hope today that you feel inspired and encouraged because that's so important to our role as fundraisers. But to start off with, let's whiz through this. I read a book called Watching the English, which is by Kate Fox, and I think it's completely brilliant. It says something about the way English people generally tend to behave. She looked at the peculiarities. Because when we're trying to raise money, we're raising money from people, aren't we? And it helps if we kind of understand what motivates those people and how they work. So she summarized a kind of English personality or character in 3 ways. She said the reflexes generally of English people are for humor. Everything has to be funny. We like moderation. We don't want to make a big deal about anything. And we're into hypocrisy. And that's not nasty hypocrisy, that's nice hypocrisy. That's where we don't want to offend somebody by pretending by saying we're not interested. So we pretend we are interested even when we're not. And that's a nice thing to do. And if you've ever done a golf day, you'll know exactly what that means. I've done loads of golf days and I hate golf. You know, if somebody says to me, golly, that 9th hole, tricky, isn't it, today? Phew, crosswind, something. If I go and say, what do I care? I hate golf. It doesn't tend to go down very well. So I nod and smile and say, yeah, sure, yeah, very tricky. Yeah, I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. Anyway, so those are the reflexes. In terms of the values, if I can get this to technology. Oh, there we go, brilliant. The values, what are the things that we live our lives by? Fair play, courtesy, and modesty. These are really important characters. And finally, what's our outlook? I really like empiricism. We like what we see. We don't believe in all these highfalutin ideas. And Eeyorishness. She says that if you had summarized the English character in one word, she'd say it would be typical. Typical. And class conscious. Anyway, what do all of those go and create? They go and create the defining characteristic of the English is social dis-ease, which I think is wonderful. That actually, what we find is that people feel awkward in social settings. That's what she's basically saying. Now, another thing that she goes on to say is that one of the things that people don't like talking about in England is money. Now, are you getting the scenario here? Okay, so people are generally social dis-ease. They feel awkward about social settings and they don't like talking about money. Is this giving an insight into perhaps why it's difficult to go and fundraise? It's a challenge. There is a slight positive upbeat, particularly for where we are today, because that guy there is Joseph Rowntree. My dad worked at Rowntree's. He was one of the great Quaker philanthropists. Rowntree, not my dad. And it was, at that time, some amazing people did amazing things. Anyway, Kate Fox found out there is only one part of the country where people are demonstrably more comfortable about talking about money, and that's Yorkshire. Isn't that great? We are a hotbed of money-talking people. So if we can do it anywhere in this country, we can do it here. However, the reality is, for a lot of us, I think, is that fundraising is uphill work. This was, for ages, this was my wallpaper on my computer. And that's Arthur Dent from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And he's looking out with complete horror because the bulldozers have just gone and demolished his house. And he's thinking, what could possibly be worse than bulldozers demolishing your house? Without realizing that right behind him is the Vogons shortly to destroy the world. That was my experience of fundraising. The stuff in front of me was pretty bad, but that was nothing compared to what was coming over my shoulder. And I think that's one of the tough things, and this is an essential truth about fundraising, and it doesn't matter what kind of fundraising you do, what kind of organization you work for, this is a completely essential truth. An escalator is never broken, but sometimes it becomes stairs. We all have fundraising ventures that are like that. Our job very often is to take something that is broken and turn it into something that works. That's our challenge, and it's a huge one. It's a daunting one, but it's a really important one. Now, you're going to have to stay with me here because I'm going to talk about the 5 essential truths of fundraising and the background to it. And frankly, it's pretty odd, okay? And if you've read my book, you'll know it's pretty odd, and people are nodding, so I'm worried. Okay. I did an MA in applied theology. It takes a long time to explain why, and I won't do it now. And I did a 9,000-word essay on a theology of masculinity. Okay, we're getting seriously odd now. Okay, it gets worse. One of the books I read was called Adam's Return by a guy called Richard Rohr, and he looked at male initiation ceremonies across all cultures, religions, and continents. Still with me? Okay. Fascinatingly, he found that there were 5 essential truths that were taught through these initiation ceremonies as boys became men. And it didn't matter what your religion, what your culture, nothing. They all taught you 5 essential truths. And I think all those 5 essential truths are really important for us as fundraisers. Okay, so what are they? Here they are. Life is hard. you are not that important, your life is not about you, you are not in control, and you are going to die. Now, if that's not motivating you today, I don't know what is. How does that apply to fundraising? Well, life is hard. You know, I used to come to conferences like this, and I always had this impression, okay, that there was something I was missing with my fundraising. I always imagined that there were fundraisers out there who largely spent most of their time with their feet up on the desk typing out thank you letters, because their pure aura brought money in. They had got to that higher Zen-like state of fundraising that money just flowed into the organisation. And if you think that, I have some shocking news. It's not true. Fundraising is hard. What kind of weirdo gets into fundraising, honestly? Because we spend most of our time being rejected, don't we? How many fundraising things are successful? How many mailings that we send out? How many individual approaches? How many of those are successful? A tiny number. So we have to spend on a day-to-day basis being rejected, okay? So we're weird. But life is hard. And as I was saying earlier, people don't like talking about money, and we're asking them about money. So life is tough, and we should expect it to be so. We're not that important. It's very important how you go and say this sentence. You can put emphasis on different words, and it means completely different things. You're not that important. I'm not saying you're not important, but you're not that important. Because the donor is the one that's doing the remarkable things. They are the ones that are doing incredible things. I always encourage my fundraisers, be consistent. Don't take all the praise and don't take all the blame either. So it's not us that are important as fundraisers.